Perfect. We will call this board briefing to order at 2:00 p.m. And we have 3 items on here, 2 of which are with Christy. So I'm going to hand it to her, starting with the voters pamphlet. Take it away.
Can we do dogs first since
Oh,
Matt and Josh are
sure.
here? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it to Christy and we're going to talk about the dogs first.
Okay, so Ordinance 64 is severely outdated, which we all know, and we talked about that last year at the budget time. So really trying to look at kind of that 50,000-foot level of what really needs to some kind of key points that we probably should look at. And I have a couple suggestions of things we might want to try. But I did give you your own copy of Oregon Revised Statute 609. So it's all about dogs. And so a lot of it, I know, fun reading for the weekend. So there's the ORS, and then I did a little cheat sheet on the top that just directs you to like impounding, redemption fees, and directs you right to that statute. Licensing requirements and fee authority, right to the statute. Service animals exempt from license fees, right to that statute. And then all dog revenues must be remitted back to Tillamook County or to the county per statute. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we're lacking right now is we're getting zero revenue back from Canine Rescue for impounded fees. And those impound fees by statute have to be returned to us. And we haven't received any since 2018. We got a check for $2,000 in 2018, the last part of Bill Bartlane's term. So we haven't received anything since then. So fees are a big thing. I gave you, I think I sent a little just discussion points. So I think our biggest problem is that people just, well, we're not going to license our dog because what are you going to do to us if we don't? So, and that's probably really true. There's really no teeth behind the ordinance. So really looking at how can we be more, make people be more compliant. One of the options that several counties do is veterinarians report on a monthly basis to the clerk's office, and they send a list of all the dogs that have received a rabies vaccine in that time, because the statute's very clear that all dogs in the state of Oregon must have a valid rabies, and it lines out like when they need to get it. And so that being the law, then several counties have created part of their ordinance directing veterinarians within their jurisdiction to submit to the county a list of dogs with the owner information, contact information, and then whoever's in charge of the dog program can then send out, hey, we know you got a vaccine for so-and-so. Here's the statutory, here's the rule. It tells you you have to license, here's your fees, and here's how you can go about paying for those. And so that's one suggestion that we might look at to get more people licensed. License fees, I did a little spreadsheet for you. I did comparators of our border counties, looking at what they're charging for their fees. And we're pretty much in line with our, I did Clatsop, Lincoln, Polk, and Yamhill. And those are, we charge, Yamhill charges a little bit more than we do, and then us. And then Clatsop, Lincoln, and Polk, their fees are much lower. So when we're looking at like raising them, that's some data for you guys to look at as well. So the next thing, I think we need to define like kennel licenses, because we have quite a few owners in the county who have breeding, they're either breeders or they have kennels, and kennels are called out in statute as well. It's just not part of our current ordinance, but we have several people that probably need a better definition of what a kennel license is, so they know whether they need to get a license or not for their kennel.
Currently, that's defined in that statute.
It is, yes. And then one of the things I called the animal control officers for each of the surrounding counties and talked with them. And, you know, they have inspection and enforcement, which I know is probably not something that would be super fun to do, but that's part of like the kennel part, is determining, you know, do they meet the statutory requirements and are meeting that threshold? Like there's certain things that you have to do if you have a kennel. So if we're charging a kennel license fee, then there probably has to be something in the ordinance that talks about what that might look like what that might look like. Service animals are not called out in the ordinance. I think that's something that we've had a lot of, by statute, service animals aren't required. They can have their fee waived. But what we want to do is still have them get a license. We just will waive their fee, so that we have them of record. We know where the dog's at. They have a license number, all of that. So I think it would be helpful if we had that clarified in the ordinance as well. And then just ordinance-specific corrections on updates. Removing Tillamook Animal Shelter because it's canine rescue, right? We referenced the city of Tillamook enforcing for us, and they're not doing that. So how are we going to go about enforcing? And then dogs, there's just things that they talk about dogs under the statute, like you're only allowed to keep an impounded dog for 5 days, and then it has to be transported to a humane society. So are we doing that? It's just a question that I came across. And then, of course, we were talked about the fees, that they're not in, that they aren't being submitted back to us by Canine Rescue, and they're not ensuring that they have a valid license when they're being let out of impound either, if they're in our jurisdiction. And then, like you said, we haven't updated anything in 15 years, and that's kind of my high-level areas I think that we need to probably look at, or I'd like to see us look at. Questions?
Thank you. I think, so I appreciate the information. We've had this conversation, I think, twice since I started kind of trying to find a path forward. And we've never quite found one. So I appreciate you bringing it forward. I appreciate law enforcement being with us. Because I think that we need to figure out is there a working committee? Who puts this together? Is it, as we were joking about before this meeting, our new attorney, since he's coming on board, is this his first project? I know law enforcement has limited resources, which has come up regularly when we talk about this. So what's realistic? But having the Board of Commissioners craft it probably isn't it. So what is the appropriate process, the appropriate people to take the ordinance that we have today, look at its viability, look at if we're going to make changes to it, what is the viability of actually implementing those changes as well? Because I feel like that's part of where it keeps getting stuck, is that everybody goes, this is not good. And then we go, well, what could we do that would be better? And ultimately we go, we just don't have resources to do anything. So then it just stalls out again, which, I don't know how we kind of get over that hump. So I'm actually going to turn to Rachel for some assistance as our Chief Administrative Officer to help see if there is a path forward that makes sense in our current structure.
I'm so glad Christy has been working on this. I would say where it has gotten stuck is the lack of a champion and the priority. I was a founding member on the shelter, and Bill and I worked on this a lot. We had several starts and stops with revising the ordinance, and it just never gets over the finish line. And so I think first it needs a champion. I don't know if Christy is that champion.
Happy to champion it.
That would
I'm
be
happy
great.
to. Like,
That would be great. The work groups that have been established, that have worked on it in the past, have been a combination of city PD, sheriff's office, the shelter, me, the clerk. That's all that's coming to mind. And we've sat and gone through line by line, revising the ordinance, just trying to come up with the fees, who's enforcing. And so I think that's probably where we are again, is just starting at that point again. And so identifying the players and getting the work group going. And if Christy can be a champion, I think that's great.
And I think I was sharing with Paul a couple weeks ago that I think where we get stuck too in those big community meetings is that, we're talking with Canine Rescue, which is great because we're contracting with them. However, do we have to have as much input necessarily? If you have your ordinance and you say, okay, these are the things that we expect to happen, and we're contracting with them, and then you're fulfilling this, that maybe it's maybe too many people. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't think it's been too many people. I think you're right that it is an enforcement, and we're asking them to fill this role, and so it's appropriate to request or mandate that, especially if we're giving them the money. Where they've been integral in the discussion is because they're the pass-through, or have been the pass-through of some of the money, is from a logistical standpoint. When they're collecting money from people, what can they do? What can't they do? How do they get county cash to the county, and all of that?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, it is us putting it in our ordinance, but we do need their input on how to craft it to some degree.
And one of the things when talking to other enforcement officers, they were saying, the county just cites ORS 609, And then they just do board orders to set the fees, to do the contracts. And so maybe we can simplify it by just maybe looking at how some of the like Clatsop and Yamhill and Polk and Lincoln do that, where they're just citing the statute and then figuring out internally with just board orders, setting fees and that. So I don't know if that's an
Yeah.
option either, but.
Yeah, I like that.
So Rachel, I know for your plate, we have said nothing until 2026. And so is this something that would be you, or is this something that gets delegated now from your position to someone else in our staff or office, or?
I think it depends on when it's gonna start. I think leading and participating are two completely different roles for me, and
Okay.
so I think, I don't know if anyone from our office needs to be in the weeds of this. I think when, there's ordinances that get worked on, and then when they get far enough along, then they come to us and legal, and I look at it and, from that perspective, but I don't know if anybody from our office does need to be in the weeds, but happy to. I think Isabella or I could, and depending on the timing.
It would be nice to have it like implemented something before next budget season, so we have like fees in place, so if we're looking at a timeline
And I think
possibly.
it can be pretty simple. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
like you said, there's a lot in the ordinance, and I think if we strip it down and make it more simple, that might be a good approach.
Yeah.
Especially to get it done sooner.
Commissioners, other thoughts? I just sort of ran with sort of process, but
Sure. I'm wondering, I like your suggestions. I'm wondering about having the vets send rabies updates to the county. I'm wondering if they bulk at that, like the extra work for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm one. Yeah, I can see why you would.
Yeah.
But also, it would be valuable information to have. And I'm wondering if the clerk's office has the time and inclination, or better yet, if we can find a program, some kind of efficiency, some kind of software efficiency tool to be able to send out notices to people. Because when I was Cassie's liaison, she was emphatically, no, we are not sending out licenses because it takes way too much staff time to do it, or the renewal notices. And so when people stop getting reminded, then they assume that that's their permission to stop doing it.
turn your microphone on. Sorry, I just noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just human nature. So,
But we do have the system, so we have Helion as our vendor. They're a recording suite, but they're also what we do dogs, marriage, and as well. And we do have the ability, once we enter somebody, we can send a correspondence. So once we get the information in, we can have a form letter to just print off and send. And then we've built some efficiency into, like this year, we're sending out a postcard for renewals, and we're sending it to a mail house in Portland. So we're trying to like reduce our fees and our staff time because we have other things to do as well. But
yeah.
I think there's ways to work around it and make it happen.
Okay, great. Do we know anything about the gap, and this might be a Rachel question, like when Canine Rescue stopped remitting the fees that you're talking about, stopped remitting them to us? I know they've had a lot of organizational change, and I wonder, is that something that just got lost historically?
It was 2018. It was when Bill left. It was like the last week, his last board meeting, I think, at Canine Rescue. They wrote a check for $2,000, and he brought it in after the meeting. And so it was, it's been.
Yeah, I think between that, I left the board, I think shortly thereafter, and it just kind of fizzled again because other priorities came up and nobody was really keeping tabs on it. Even the annual allocation I don't even know if we're giving them an annual allocation.
They're getting, I just don't know.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
an agreement. I think we still have an agreement, but
Yeah, that we budget for their fees every year,
Yeah.
for their operation stuff each year now.
Okay. And in terms of no enforcement, you said our ordinance says City of Tillamook, but they're not enforcing. So we have no enforcement and no means of enforcement. So the way that we're officially using Canine Rescue, just to make sure I understand correctly, is if law enforcement needs to drop off an animal, they have a place to do it. That's basically it. Is that? I'm looking at you, Sheriff.
For the
But
canine shelter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, that is the purpose of why it was created, for county purposes, but they also take in other dogs as capacity allows.
Okay. I think that's all my question.
Okay, thank you. Paul, is there
Hi.
anything you wanna-
Yeah, so Christy and I have talked quite a bit about this. I just have a couple of things. One, I think it is interesting. I was shocked that we hadn't got paid for 8 years. Second, I think as the code enforcement gets shored up, I always thought that was a way to, I mean, a lot of this enforcement is actually just paperwork enforcement. It's letters sent or something. And I'm also curious if you looked into, do we have an automated system? Like if someone wanted to go online right now, could they go online and get a license and it would all be like fill in the blank and, upload a veterinary proof of vaccination and then you would process that and send it, or how does it work?
We just created, because prior to me becoming clerk, we didn't have the option to go out and have the dog payment portal out there and live. So they just created for us within the last 2 weeks a dog license in preparation for 26. But they created a dog license dropdown. So when someone goes to our payment portal in the dropdown, they can click dog license, and we built it in where they can put their owner ID, their information. And then the postcards say when the rabies are, expired, and most people know, and they've been doing it long enough that they just either mail it to us, they fax it to us, or they email it to us. So we will have the link set up here toward the end of the year before we start taking payments for 26. So yes, it's online. It will be January 5th when we come
I
back
think that's
that day.
great. I think that'll help a lot. I also think trying to, if we could mirror the release from the kennel, I don't know how you would do that, but kind of mirror what the sheriff's office does if they impound a car, they have to pay money to the county before they get the car released.
Yeah, and that's how it was before, is they would, if the, because we had, with Mattillamook Animal Shelter was doing it, they would get a hold of Maria, and then she would say, okay, you need to go to the county. And then we would look them up, because and I kept a list of all the impounded dogs, because serial offenders have to pay more, they have to pay more impound fees. And so we had that list, and so we would know how many impounds that they had, and then we kept a log of that. And so they would have to come, prepay a license if they didn't have a valid rabies at the time. They would have to prepay their license, pay their impound fees, take those receipts with the dog tag back to the animal shelter to get their dog out.
Now,
And that was our prior process.
what about, I'm trying to find compliance here. We focus on enforcement a lot, and that's always been a stumbling block, and it's really about compliance. So to make people comply, you gotta make it easy. So what I was thinking is if you're gonna have a point that you could pay for a license online, you might as well have a point where you can pay for an impound.
Mhm.
And so if someone's over there on a weekend and they're impounding an animal, is there possible for them to pay for the license and the impound fee right there, so we're getting it without a pass through to the kennel?
Yeah.
And then they get something they can take a screenshot of or some kind of receipt online that they can show.
Yeah, we created a QR code that's gonna go on our postcard that we're mailing out, so we could have that available at the shelter. We have always given access to our animal control program, but I do not believe that they have access to it at this time, because it's just lost track of that, so we haven't had that communication. But we've always had the public access for them, so they could go in and look up an owner and see if that dog was licensed. And so that was really helpful, because then they would be able to tell if they'd been impounded, they would know if they had a current rabies and if they were licensed. And then we have the QR code. Yes, they can scan them and go on and just pay, and know what the fees are.
I think that would be great. I think, as part of the contract with them, maybe we have to restate some of the requirements of this, and again, making it easier for us, for you, for the county to get the money is gonna be paramount. That's one of the things. Who would you, what do you think is the next best step? Because you and I have talked about this, and what I want to do is not have it stall. Are you comfortable coming in with whatever help you need from me as your liaison or anybody else in the room, with fine tuning this ordinance, maybe with Bill or with Rachel, but getting it to a point where you're, rather than doing it by committee, just, what is probably best for this. You've been doing it for years. I'm looking at some language in here, like doesn't say service animal, it says blind. It's specifically blind, like it has to be. But you already know that, and you probably have an idea for that. I'm just wondering, is there a better way to kind of streamline this so we can get it? Because the sheriff has a bunch of ordinances. Like I think 2026 is going to be a busy year for ordinances for us, and this might as well be part of it as well. And
Yeah, I'm happy to do whatever I can to make it easier. So
I think you being the champion, you just tag your it, but
fine. Yeah, and I can do that. It's not a problem.
And I'm willing to, whatever, we can, like we do with the code enforcement, we have a little bit of a work group
Mhm.
of the departments that are directly related. And I spoke to you about that. You're kind of too, if this, and it becomes that, and I know we don't want to make the code enforcement officers being dog catchers. That's not what I'm doing here. But if you need to convene a group, a work group to get this,
Okay.
I guess whatever you need, I want to be able to do it because I know this has been something we've been talking about for years.
you know,
I mean, even as police officer, I had a deputy, I had to deal with the dog stuff, and I know they would like a streamlined approach. I just want to make sure we get our money.
Yes.
And the canine
Yeah.
shelter gets their money to, to keep running, so. I guess whatever you need, if you can tell me what you need or tell us what you need, that would
Okay. Yeah, if we can have just a small group and we can just sit down and start knocking things out, that would be good.
be great.
So do you just, so go.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
give you permission.
I appreciate
Right,
the
that's,
work.
from our
Yeah.
perspective, I know that the sheriff and the undersheriff are both here. Are there things that you'd like to say before we say, Christie, go?
I got a couple.
Permission?
I don't think it's anything that's gonna hold anything up. It's more
Okay.
insight than
The
anything.
thing, I want to hear from you.
I think that changing this in whatever form, you're probably gonna run into barriers from K-9 because they've been doing it a certain way for a certain amount of time. They collect those fees. They make the determination on repeat offenders, getting some of it waived. I know this, I've had conversations about it. I am also surprised that they haven't remitted payment. I mean, that's contractual, so that's just a matter of gaining compliance with them. How that's done, I don't know. I'm very curious. I don't believe that they are sending dogs to the Humane Society after 5 days or whatever that says, so there's probably some input that you need there. If you do bring them to the table as you redraft this, which is probably why it's fizzled out in the years, is you have so many voices at the table that it just runs into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock and fizzles out, So, I mean, if you start a draft and get your insight from some people, I think that's the best way to do it. Similarly, I don't even think I said that right. It was very interesting to hear about the veterinarian approach. The fact that it's been done in other counties, you're probably gonna have them balk at it, and it sounds like maybe they have, but if that's what the county needs to do, that's what the county needs to do. But if you bring them at the table, they're gonna fight you on it. So it's like, just kind of interesting how that all plays out. I think that's a very interesting idea. It's just one more step for them. Maybe it's not every month, maybe it's quarterly, I don't know. And you are correct that enforcement from our standpoint, of course, every ordinance we have the ability to enforce and write citations on. There are some tremendous hurdles, just timing, bouncing call to call. It's like, do we seek out dogs and just go up and knock on a door and say, hey, is this dog licensed? Or if we're dealing with it, and if it happens at 9 o'clock at night, how do we verify whether there's a license? So there may be some training issues. If you have a portal and we have access to it, maybe that helps. I don't know. And maybe this eventually, a year or two down the road, does fall under the ordinance enforcement, umbrella, if you ever do get 2, 3, whatever, because I understand there's probably other things that an ordinance enforcement would need to do. So generally, that's just kind of my observation. I think that the veterinarian thing is a good idea, but again, how many people are not getting the rabies shot? So it's like, you're not going to catch every dog, but, you do want compliance for sure.
I do want to speak to that. Appreciate you bringing that back up, 'cause I forgot to mention that.
You're welcome. The only other thing I would say is one thing I saw in the ordinance was about, there was a specific paragraph or section that talked about our right to enter any property to enforce this, I believe.
Yeah, except we couldn't go into the premises themselves.
Well, right. I would caution that because I've been taught or heard numerous law things. I think the case is Box versus OSP. I think it came out of Klamath Falls. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You can't go on.
But we've been removing that, like the code enforcement, like
Yeah.
we've been removing that language, like city ordinances had that, like.
Yeah, that's one
We've
thing
been
that would be a
striking that.
big red flag. I would definitely look at that, which again, an attorney, counsel would probably be able to advise you on that. But like I said, I think it's Box versus OSP that really set the parameter on where police can actually go. But really, that's just kind of my 2 cents. I would keep the group small if you're going to redraft this, or redraft it and then bring them in, say these are the steps. And I agree, that's kind of shocking that they're haven't paid since 2018. So, did you have anything?
One thing I said, if the veterinary total, it's true. Animal care is dramatically different nowadays than it was in 2006 when there was 6 vets in town. I would argue that 90% of the people in this community don't actually use the vet in this town.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, I hear about everybody going over the valley for a vet
Yeah.
because you only have really the Halem, Cloverdale, and Pioneer vet
That's really hard to get in.
that are really vets in the community. So if it was a big stumbling block, I'd probably not fight it because you're only getting that capturing a handful of the population that they're going to be submitting records to. So.
Good point.
So that's a question to me. Is there any state, because what I was thinking, I was gonna say, but that's a really good point. I wasn't even thinking of that fact. Because I was thinking selling this to the veterinarians, it's more like, if you put it on your database, it could be accessed. And if they get a dog bite, we could immediately discover whether that dog has been vaccinated or not. Is there a state
So can I
election?
ask if we've maybe gone far enough that we know there are a lot of questions for Christie and that maybe there's a space other than the board briefing to kind of explore those further questions? If we're getting kind of into the nitty-gritty details of it, I don't want to shut this down, but I kind of do because we've got 2 more things on our list of things to talk about today. I don't want to get too far into problem solving the weeds. But I do want to make sure that, Christie, you feel like you got what you needed, and commissioners, you feel like you got to share kind of the concerns or parameters. And I appreciate, Paul, you're saying you're willing to jump in and help with this. And maybe that level of detail will occur in that. Again, I don't want to shut it down before everybody's ready, but we do have a couple other things with us today, including another one for Christie.
I was totally interested in what Paul was just saying, just because it was a new thought to me that it would be very handy to be able to access those records for police if there was a dog bite to find out if the dog had received a vaccine. I think that's very interesting. And yes, I think the details can be moved to Christie into a small working group, and I appreciate your willingness and your offer to champion it.
Not a problem, not a problem. I will say, the one veterinarian office claimed HIPAA violation if they gave us,
HIPAA.
I didn't know that.
Interesting.
Hold on.
And they have to, I just recently got a rabies shot for a dog. And they have an official form that they have to fill out and give you a copy of. So one would think that form would be, then they would be filing it electronically.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Interesting.
Thank you very much.
You.
And the other thing I would say is just a reminder for all of us that ordinances do have to start with public input. I always think back to the business license where we didn't do that adequately, and we had a very angry public that showed up to the hearing. So I would suggest that as we do this, while we want to start with a small working group and streamline and just get something, but once we have something, making sure that we're getting adequate input from the veterinarians before we list that they're going to do something, et cetera, so that we don't end up with a room full of very angry people who we have given tasks in an ordinance that they didn't agree to. I was right in the beginning of my tenure as a commissioner, so it was sort of impactful and traumatic. Okay, thank you everyone for that. I think we have a path forward. Christie, please don't hesitate to reach back out to our office if there's something you do need
And I'll,
that might be a Rachel or attorney thing, and obviously Paul can link you to all of that.
perfect.
Thank
I'll
you.
do that.
Okay.
Keep Josh going.
What?
I'm gonna be here for a while, so don't worry about me going with you on that.
I don't know if they started it.
Okay.
Okay, voters pamphlet. So
Voters
we shift
pamphlet.
topics.
Yeah, so this came about because we've had a lot of people asking questions, and Mary Faith had reached out to me, sharing a concern from a constituent about the lack of voters pamphlet. And this year, I specifically didn't budget any money into a voters pamphlet because it was a special district election year, so May, it's our small water sewer. Obviously, we have the school districts, which are contentious, but we just typically haven't had one. And normally in the general election time, the Headlight Herald has been putting out the community voters guide. So we thought we'll just kind of get through this year and figure it out, because as I'm trying to get information and talk, I'm realizing that it's a lot and it's way more. It sounds pretty easy. We'll just do a voters pamphlet, but it's pretty more challenging. So I had given you just an information sheet, and I listed, the counties that do currently do a voters pamphlet. And then estimated costs, probably between $10,000 to $14,000 to do that. And it's really important that by administrative rule and by statute, you cannot generate any revenue off of the voters pamphlet. So say we have all these filing fees and we're charging everyone, we get all the fees in, because you have to collect the fees before you produce the voters pamphlet. When you get down to the end, if your revenue exceeds what it actually cost you, you have to reimburse and allocate that back to the districts in an apportioned manner. So that's probably one of the biggest things that when I've been talking to other clerks, is like, it's a pain, that part of it is. So that's something to keep, in mind. Also, it's all, and one of the things that I did give you was the administrative rule that outlines the voters pamphlet. And the state statute that directs the state voters pamphlet is just about what the state's in charge of. And so they have an administrative rule that dictates, okay, what the counties have to do. And that fee schedule, all of it is within that administrative rule. One of the things is producing it falls in line with when we're doing our ballot proofing. So it takes Caitlin and I, by the time we get everything entered into our system, we have to do all of our proofing reports, send our file to our ballot printer on a Friday. By Monday morning, we come in and we have our proofs. So we print off all, 100 and whatever ballot styles, and we have to sit down, run our reports, and then proof ballot content for spelling, position names, all of that. And that takes us usually 2 days to do that. And then once we get that part done, we have to get everything then to the printer and get the military out. So it's a lot. At the same time, those deadlines are the same for the voters pamphlet. And so we would have to be proofing the voters pamphlet content alongside ballot content and the staffing to do that. Like, we would have to really figure out how we could make that happen. And we can't charge for staff time either. So when we're looking at our allocated costs, it has to be like what we're doing for postage, printing, and we cannot charge for staff time. So if we look at, hourly rate for Caitlin and I to do that, or even our other staff, and you're looking at 2 to 5 days, because we have to enter everything into a system that we have to figure out, proof it all. And I don't know how we make that happen without losing money, or I don't know. It's just a lot to think about, and how do we make it happen? And especially since we've never done it before, how can we make it happen? It's important for me that, voters are informed. I want them to be informed, and I want people to feel comfortable when they're casting their vote and they're actually voting for somebody, that they have the information they feel that they need. I just have to figure out, and with input from you all, like what we should do and how do we make that happen, even in our current budget state. Like, what do we do? And I guess I'm at a loss for that.
So you said we've never done it before. We have had them here. Did those come from the state
The
then?
state produces a voters pamphlet in primary and general elections, or any statewide measure, they do one. So yes, we get one at a state level, but that doesn't reach out to like our special districts. They don't have the ability to go in the voters pamphlet. And so I think we're covered pretty well in our primary and general, but I think it's really around the special districts when we look at, maybe you have 50 people registered in a small water district, like Hunt Water District. There's 35 voters in that district. So how do you, the same 5 people have been on the board forever. And so then how do you, I think people know people, but I think when it gets down to when we look at like the PUD or Soil and Water Conservation District, or the school districts, transportation district, the college, those are some of the bigger, candidates that people don't know. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's a good answer how we do that. Our filing forms are online. They changed the statute that we have to have things up within 2 days. So that's something that we're doing. But I just don't have a good answer for how we make it.
When the Headlight Herald has done their, what did you call it, the community guide?
Community voting
Did
guide.
we give money to that?
You paid.
feel
We
like
did
we-
the first year,
the first year?
and thereafter, they said they weren't gonna do it again because it wasn't profitable. So I don't know if
Oh.
they have done it in consecutive years. I haven't seen it if they have.
They did it last general, so they've done it twice.
General?
November of '26 would be then the next time that they would put one out, because that's when they did it. They did it in November of '24.
Oh, okay.
And so then '26 would be the next time.
We don't actually need it for the general. I mean, because we have the statewide, right?
We do, but it gave, for if like, any of our county candidates want to be on there that didn't necessarily want to pay the fee to be in the state voters pamphlet or miss the deadline, it gives you a local opportunity to, yeah.
The radio bond.
Yeah, and they don't have to follow they don't have to follow all the rules that you have to follow.
Correct, because they're just putting something out there
Yeah. for
that
the
they can
community.
do, yeah, and I don't know, that would be a good question for legal counsel, like, can we, like, what would that look like if we gave money to help support that? Can we do that with candidates being in their different measures? Would that look at, like, we're supporting one thing or another? So I don't know.
And so I thought I heard you say a couple things. One is that candidates, so we're beholden to the laws of voter pamphlet if we do it because we are an elections office. And candidates have to pay to be in it.
Mhm.
And that really the gap we're trying to fill is the special districts gap. And I know you sent us all that and I looked at it all, but it didn't stick in my head. So, like how much people have to pay, it seemed like it was dependent upon
Yeah.
the size of the district that they were being elected into, and it was somewhere between $100 and
500.
$500.
Yes.
And we can't discount that. We can't make that more affordable. So
'Cause
I
it's
think
set by
that's a
statute.
thought, right? Is if we're
Mhm.
trying to cover these smaller special districts, is that realistic that people are gonna do that?
Right.
And I heard that we can't make money. We gotta give money back if by chance we don't spend that amount on specifically
Yeah.
printing, et cetera, because we can't count the people's time.
Correct.
And that we would probably need to potentially hire more people for a short window of time just to do this.
Yes.
So we would have the cost of the printing, et cetera, the cost of the people, and the cost of collecting the fees and figuring them out and remitting the fees.
Yep.
So that if all worked out perfectly, it would be easy, but
Yeah.
but we would have those extra people. So in addition to the 10 to 14,000 that
Mm.
it would cost just for the permit, et cetera, there would be
Yeah, so
people
say
that had to
we,
be specifically
yeah.
hired and trained because of your time window.
Yes. Because I honestly don't think that there is a way that Caitlin and I could proof the ballots and the voters pamphlet content. So then that leads you, okay, well then are we gonna have to train staff to then proof the ballot content? Which I trust my staff. It's not that I don't trust them, but I think it's something that as a clerk, I wanna be able to say, well, I've looked at the ballots, I've looked at all the content, and I can verify that what I've sent out is correct. So not being controlling or anything about it, but I just like to know that that part's done. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Commissioners, other questions,
Uh,
comments?
I do think it's important and all of your questions are totally valid. And we've talked about this for all the years I've been here. All the years I've been here, the public has asked, and you're exactly right that the problem is the gap is in the hyper-local elections where people don't have any idea. They have no idea. Every single election, people call me and say, do you know who these people are?
Right.
Because people shouldn't have to vote that way, like closing their eyes and picking.
Yep.
And so I think it is important, and how we do it is also very important. It's not, I also don't see you and Caitlin doing it on top of what you're already doing in a busy election. That doesn't seem realistic. I don't know how other counties accomplish it, if it's possible to look at, what are best practices in other places.
Yeah.
What I have wondered about is contracting it, and and when we contributed to the Headlight Herald, when the Headlight Herald did their first one, which might have been 2018 or 19 or 20, not 18, but 19 or 20. 'cause I was
2022.
here.
Yeah. It was
Okay.
2022.
We did contribute to that, and at that time, it passed legal. I think that because the Headlight Herald was the contractor, it was their project, we didn't have to approve whether or not they had absolutely everybody in there. They invited everybody to be in there, but if people didn't respond, then they didn't respond. And they tried to get everybody in there, but I remember some people just never, they just never
Mhm.
did. And, but I think we may have, um, I'm sure we can find it, but we may have invoiced it as communication, because that's what it is. It was part of our plan, like how to communicate to the public.
Mhm.
So I think there are probably ways to do it that don't include piling it all on you in the busy election system. So my mind is like, how do we get to yes without
yeah.
making your job impossible?
Yeah, and I want to have it, I mean, I want to say yes, and I think because it's important, and I want to offer that. We have to figure out a way to get there.
Right.
And, yeah,
Right.
yep.
Paul, any thoughts?
No, I concur with what folks have said.
So what else can we do to help you?
Well, I just wanted to have the conversation so we all heard the same thing and just really get feedback, because I can go forward and figure out if there's other options. You know, can we contract it out? I don't know. I think that the statute's very clear and the administrative rule is very clear that it's between the state, the county, and the city. So when it defines like who's in charge of it, it's very clear that it's the county is in charge.
But I'm recalling when the Headlight Herald did it before, they couldn't call it the same thing we call it.
No.
So they weren't held to those standards.
No, they were not.
Yeah.
No.
So I think that's a viable route.
Yeah. Yep. And I could reach out to Will and talk to Will and see what their thoughts are, looking into 26, if this is what they're wanting to do, and then what we can look at for budgeting into helping to support that.
Yeah. Because they always are running those sections, you know, those, basically those are revenue generators for them. So they have to figure out how to make it profitable.
Correct, yes. So then that really leads us to, we're looking at the May of odd numbered years, which is when we have our special district elections, which that's probably the biggest gap that we have. So asking them if they're willing to possibly look at doing something in the May of odd numbered years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And once we decide, we're locked in, you can't stop. And that's the other thing too.
Oh.
Once we decide, if the county decides
Forget it, yeah.
we're doing a voter's pamphlet, we're locked in.
So we can't just try it once. No
No.
trial runs.
Nope, like you're in.
Definitely talk to Will then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, if we, start doing something, I wanna make sure that it's viable, I wanna make sure that we can keep continuing to offer that, because it's terrible to give somebody this really great thing one time,
Right.
and then to say, sorry, yeah, I can't have that anymore, so.
I also wondered about the possibility of, you always have election workers for the season. And I wondered, if contracting out the whole project wasn't viable for some reason, could you have a specific election worker who was responsible for that?
Mhm.
Like one person concentrating their effort on that?
Yeah, we could. I have one specific election worker that was he was a college professor, so he's great.
Exactly.
So I think I could see him
Yeah.
wanting to help with that, so,
Yeah.
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 So,
So,
So I think you've heard, we're in support. We'd love to have something that gets out to the people, are in support of you not taking on something that you
Right.
feel is just too complicated or not possible, but definitely in support of whatever further exploration you want to do and figuring out what it costs. And then for us to look and say, with that, where can we find that? How can we do that?
okay, perfect.
That seem right?
it seems, yes, and I wondered if Rachel had any additional ideas.
Darn it.
No additional thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I'm thinking, and I don't know how much, I guess you can as an elected, and you can as well, is just any of the parties that are out there. Just encouraging them to bolster their groups. I know we are talking about the smaller districts, but,
Yeah.
It would seem that they would want a voter's pamphlet, so if they were contributing, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
You.
Happy
Appreciate your time
Thanksgiving.
today. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.
See you, Bill.
Okay, so the,
Oh, Christie.
I saw Matt.
I did not, I think Matt hit her.
Get out of here so fast, you're just crawling.
okay.
Are you hot? Let me turn, I'm gonna get some water.
It's hot.
Jeff, one of the taller people will help us.
I don't want to tell you the game plan. That's got the library.
2026.
Yeah, 2026. Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so the last topic on our list is liaison duties, because it is that time of year.
It is that time.
It is the time of year, Isabel, please.
As you know, annually, we discuss the liaison assignments for the coming year. And today we're going to discuss the assignments for 2026. So I provided you.
If I could interrupt.
What's that?
Before we dive into the specific assignments, just wanted you to, just as a refresher, the policy. I don't know if you
gave
brought
it to
that with
me.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that today. I think we are going to have more conversations about this at other briefings, but if you wanted to talk about it today, we could go through what's currently in the board's policy for what a liaison is, and the role, but just information for you.
Well, I read it and there wasn't anything that I wanted to add or delete just right off the bat. Are you proposing changes? to
No,
it?
no, I'm just, we're talking about liaisons. It's a good time to just keep revisiting our policies and make sure they still meet
Oh,
our
for
needs.
sure, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the first time we've done this for the policy. Actually, did step-by-step information as to what a liaison is. So we would typically start with the chair, and we go through the liaison. And so for the first, some of the liaisons, all of the commissioners.
Thanksgiving, Sheriff. Sorry, as well.
Sheriff's excellent.
Some of the liaisons, all three commissioners are part of it. So if you look at the board order from 24, I think up until the Tillamook County Citizen Corps TC4, all of the board are on those and above. So all of those, we won't be making any changes to those unless there's been conversation. And so we'll just go through Commissioner Scar first and to see if there's any changes, and Debbie and I will document the changes. We'll follow up with a draft order after that, and if there's any follow-up information needed before we make, we'll bring this to the board probably at the December 10th board meeting, I think. Because December 3rd is next week, so it'll be the following week or the week after. And that'll give us a little bit of time to make any changes, have a discussion, any follow-up information that's needed. So if you're good with that format going with each commissioner, and we'll just document any changes, any conversation if we land on some changes where they're transferring the assignment, then we'll document that too and give you back the board order to discuss, to review before we bring it forth to the December 10th or the 17th.
Great.
So for the first 6 or 7 up to TC4, so the one in Commissioner Scar's Association of ONC Counties, you're currently the vice president.
No, I'm actually not. I'm not sure how we got that one on there. That was not, I'm on the board of directors for that.
Okay.
So before we do that, I wanted to take a quick step back. There was a conversation that we had, and I can't remember where it was that we had it. I feel like it might have been in one of our Mike Gleason meetings about sort of policy and process and around liaisons and around whether it would be a good idea to shift them more frequently than we have, to try to get all of us to have more experience with all departments. And we didn't dig into it because that wasn't the place, because that was the Mike Gleason training type meeting. So I want us to see if there's any appetite to shift some things around more than we have. Because like I have things I've had for all 5 years of my time here that I got because they were bills, and I've kept because nobody seemed to, it wasn't like, hey, does somebody want that? Yeah, I want that. And whether we have an interest in trying to look at policy, and I know we're 26, everything's wait for 26, but since we're doing this, or if there is no appetite for that. So thoughts, commissioners?
I think we had a conversation, it was right before Paul took office. We did some kind of shifting, but maybe not as much as what you're suggesting or want to include. But it was when Doug was leaving, we had to distribute his liaisons. But yeah, if there's a definite shift, we can discuss that.
I've been thinking about this, of course, because I knew we were going to talk about it today, and I agree that if we want to update the policy, it shouldn't be right this minute, 2026.
Everything's 26.
Right, and so I think it's worth talking about. I have liked the process we have. I inherited a bunch also from Tim Josie, and then I got more from Bill Bartline and David Yamamoto. And then, but it has been organic, and I have liked that about it. And so there are a lot of things I've liked about the way we do it. It's traditional. It's, for me, it's very meaningful because it's really relationship based. So it feels like investments. Like I am certain that in your liaison relationships, you have developed a depth and breadth of knowledge about those operations, the departments, the budgets, the people that you couldn't have gotten in 1 year. So I feel like if we were shifting around every year, everybody would get short shrift. Everybody would be shorted because there's no way we can do our jobs and learn other departments in depth in 1 year. It just doesn't work that way. So, and I've been thinking about you specifically and what you might need to shift at least for a year. And I was wondering, like, if it seems like you ought to stay with Marlene for her last year, and obviously you're going to be buried in work this coming year. So I've been thinking about you and how you feel about that. And I've been thinking about like the relationships, there are some places, some departments where we become like some of them, the sheriff's office, is so, I have a good relationship with Josh, and Paul has a much closer relationship with Josh. And Paul asked me 6 months ago or whatever it was, he said he'd be interested in the sheriff's office. And if you still are, I'm totally willing to shift that to you. And I'm willing to take something, off your plate, because I think it is about relationships. And I like my relationship with Josh, but you are embedded there in meaningful ways that I will never be. And so, I have liked that process. And there are things like, because I've invested in those relationships, there are departments where if you two decided that you were going to take over certain departments to which I'm liaison, I would still maintain those relationships because they're that important. But then we would be duplicating work, which none of us have time to do. So, I'm just saying that I have liked the organic process where we choose, other than the ones we get assigned when we're new. We choose and we have thoughtful exchanges. So I'm for sticking with that until and if we change the policy.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, well, in regards to that, one thing I would like to start looking at is when I did ask about that, and you made it, and it was decided that at some point back in time, it was decided that all the public safety or law enforcement were linked. And I don't understand, that doesn't make sense, because to me, they're completely different departments because they deal with different parts of it, and there's different relationships. They do, each of them does a different job. The courts, the DA, and juvenile, they're all completely different. So I think that was, those being formed together, to me, seemed like it was somebody who didn't understand that they are completely different. And sometimes, as we're seeing now, they play against each other, unfortunately. And I think it's a disservice to have somebody, I don't know. For me, it felt like I definitely didn't want to have the DA's office, but I definitely thought I would be better played in the sheriff's office. So I think in reviewing how these things are bundled, if for lack of a better word, and I am interested in, I was reading the policy, I am interested in, and for some reason, I don't remember ever seeing this. So I really appreciate this. And I'm sure that I was given it last year, but it was kind of weird when I came in, because we were discussing it before I was even in office. So I don't remember this. This is great. I really appreciate this. This really is helpful for me even today.
You want the whole policy?
No,
We should probably have the whole policy.
probably should have the whole policy.
But
I also
yeah,
have a hard time, I need
it
to
has my
figure out,
roles in it. You might want to know what
I
that
have to
is.
figure out from my S2 item, it's not easy for me to find, our files, I need to figure that out, but the one thing I like, when I was, and this, we talked about this earlier, with Rachel, is, when deemed appropriate by the board may also assign a liaison commission. This is the 4102C. The board may also assign a liaison commission to particular major projects, external groups or agencies or other subjects. And I feel like that's kind of what we did with the code enforcement for me. Like, and I really thought that is a good, as a convener of that group, that's a good rule. So I think, and I'm wondering if there are things, because I can think of other things that we've talked about too. Like, I really have an interest in TLT facilities. That we don't have anything like that now because we don't have a property manager yet that may fall under that. And that would be you primarily, and I think you should always be the one, but like, I would, as we're moving forward with new ideas and using revenue differently and creating trail systems and parks, like, in addition to parks, see, to me, parks is parks, but there's other things going around that encompass. So for instance, the Netarts Bay Road, if that were to go into a trail system is another one. I feel like we updating this list of what we're liaison with, because I do a lot of work with the DMOs on the outside with Marcus and other groups in Double Salmon Berry. Like, some of these things I think is another way of bundling or creating a new group. So I am interested in doing that because I am just, I'm going to say this to you here, but one of the things that I'm open to rotating. I also think every year is not small.
No.
And I also think, like, God forbid you don't get elected or something. Me coming in, like we've talked about, it's like, maybe we should be conscious of that, of new person coming in. But one of the things that, and this has come up, is like, because of built-in long-term relationships, and a new person coming in, I don't have an opportunity to build a relationship as strong. I'm trying, but when I'm not the liaison, like, there were some things that you had heard about me that I had apparently done, which I hadn't done. But somehow that became lore. And it's hard for me to break that, to say, I'm not that guy. I'm actually very much in support of these things. In fact, I'm a champion of these things. So it feels like I don't get an opportunity to do that because you're holding on so tight with some of these. And I felt that way about the sheriff's office, which is why initially I didn't take it. I felt like it was, I would be coming into a role, and I didn't want to be perceived by my colleagues that I was in it to help Josh and Nato because of my relationships with them. So I'm just kind of venting. I'm just as a brain dump on this because I am thinking about this. I like my current liaisons departments, so I feel like, again, it's only been 11 months, so I'm still figuring out how much they want to meet with me. How much should I meet with them? This is helpful for that. And in many ways, I feel like, well, maybe I'm not doing enough over here, but I'm definitely doing enough over here. So it's really been a learning for me to figure out what my role is, what the correct role, if there is such a thing, and how to also be able to gain the knowledge that I need by not participating closely with those. Like, I made it very clear to Aaron that I don't want health department, especially during this transition. And with all
Thank you for that.
with all those things. So, but but maybe I wouldn't mind having community development or something. I don't know.
Horse trading.
Horse trading.
Maybe a comment on the list. I think, so what you highlighted for special projects, I think the board's done a really good job, especially the last year, of talking about that in the board briefing, and you working on certain things and you working on certain things that have come up where there's not a formal group. I think it was when David was leaving and Doug was coming on, we did an overhaul of this list because it had just grown so much into every little project.
We wiped out a bunch.
And they probably
Yeah.
still listen to need to be wiped
Yeah,
out.
and so just, I think it's a good framework that we have now, that it's really the appointed boards where there's some more structure and not every project. And not that that's where you were
No.
going, but I think we can have you appointed to certain projects
Right.
all day long, and they aren't in this one. In this
And
order.
that's fine too. I guess it doesn't have to be codified.
Yep,
For
exactly.
me, it's just more like, I like that we're doing that.
Yeah, it's fluid.
In a way, it's kind of cool to actually look at, because we talked about this in some of the early Mike Gleason stuff, is that that how we allocate the resources of the county, part of that is us. We are part of the resource of the county. And so as we're deciding, like the three of us have to agree, what is it that Rachel's gonna work on, right? How are we allocating the resource of the county? Not that we would tell each other what we couldn't do, but would be super helpful if we had liaisonships and maybe special projects, right? So that you could separate
That's
those
it, yeah.
apart, but so that somewhere there is a recording and understanding
Yeah.
for like, what is it you're up to, Paul? What are you working? Because then again, when someone reaches out to me, I can say, actually, Paul's working on that.
Right,
Because
same thing, 'cause we all have these.
we
kind of
do,
open-
and we don't always get the chance to share them with each other, I don't think, in their entirety, just because our time, when we do our board concerns, we do what's hot. You know, but you may have something else simmering that I have no idea you're working on.
Yep.
So it would be interesting if there was something that was a major project that we would bring it forward and share, hey, everybody, I think this is vital to the county and I'm gonna get myself into it because I think it's cool. Any thoughts? And let's just stick it on because it could be a fluid list. Wouldn't have to be that website liaison
Right.
official order.
I'm
thing.
picturing a spreadsheet that
Sure.
is just
Like your,
lives somewhere and you guys update it and quarterly there's a check-in of.
something like your administrative list, your priorities, something like
You
that.
can't use that.
2026.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you have high, medium, low, and maybe it's categorized by economic development, law enforcement, or whatever you want to do. But yeah, I like the two. Because we don't want that in order because it changes so much.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great
And also those projects may only like the code enforcement might just fizzle out, like
Yeah,
might not be
yeah.
needed anymore after.
Mhm.
you know,
Okay.
Gets going.
Yeah. I'd like to respond to a couple things of Paul's, if I may.
Yes.
So the, the.
I'm between you, nobody, I don't want to get hurt.
The bundling is, yes, it was bundled, but it was bundled for David.
Okay,
And then I got it all because David had it all. And so David had all law enforcement, all, and so there isn't, there's no requirement. And actually, if it's not a rule, and if it was, we already broke it when you took Justice Court.
right.
So we can unbundle it.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
one's
I
not in the
think-
policy. No bundling.
No, yeah, in context, I was sharing this with Paul earlier. That was done many years ago, and it was the thinking, which makes sense, but there's two ways to do it, is if one person is working on law enforcement related things, it could make sense to be the sheriff, to be with the DA, to be with Justice Court, because they do overlap
Mhm.
at certain times. And so, we did that with economic development and the different groups. So that's why it's bundled,
Right.
is the board at that time thought that there was value in doing that.
Okay, thank you.
You can do whatever you want.
You
Thank
can undo it.
Thank you.
We already did.
There we go. So, additionally, I was going to react to what you just said about, I hold on to these things so tight. And I thought, do I do that? Maybe I do. But it's in my nature that loyalty is a very, very high value for me, and relationships are a very, very high value for me. So that part is true. It's not true that I want I want that all to myself to exclude you. That's totally not true. And to that point, I don't even know if I've told you this yet. Maybe I have, but
Don't forget we're public.
right, the weirdness of, I probably haven't been, the weirdness of us not being able to talk about stuff outside of a public meeting. It's possible this will be the first time you're hearing this, that Dan and I are going to start strategic planning for parks. We've already set it up for you to be included, for all of those strategic planning workshops to be noticed, public meetings, so you can be included, so you can be in all of them. So all of that is in the works, and it's planned for you to be involved. Now,
Appreciate that.
you're welcome. And I think you have great ideas, and I do want you to be able to build your own relationships. And I know you're interested in parks development, and all of that work will benefit from you being in it and from both of us being in it. And then additionally, it had not occurred to me, I'm the liaison to TCVA. It had not occurred to me what you were just talking about, that you don't have an official liaisonship, but you have relationships with the other DMOs. So maybe we have a DMO and we're co-chairs for that, or co-liaisons, because we have had that before in the past, like especially with an incoming commissioner or a commissioner who's gonna be buried in work this year, who needs a backup or whatever. You know, we could be co-liaisons to DMOs or, I think we're not limited to what we've been doing.
Okay, that's great. That's what we're doing today. We're just discussing this parts, right? Like, we're focusing on,
Isabel's hoping for more.
Isabel would like us to tell her what to take off and put on our list. I'm not sure if we're quite ready
Yeah,
to
that's-
be there or not.
It doesn't have to be done today. Let's just
Yeah, I
start the
appreciate, I
conversation.
appreciate this more than let's pick
Yeah.
today. Because I think this is something we should be chewing on and thinking about. And I like the idea of, again, being a little more flexible with it, especially with you next year. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
be interesting.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
I'm not entirely sure exactly what it's gonna be.
Right.
I'm assuming, when I'm just looking at my travel schedule, I won't be here as much.
Well, and I want you doing, that's important work. Doing what you're doing down there is gonna help us
Yeah.
tremendously here.
And I
Just
talked to
upload
a
everything and it'll be fine.
Yeah, right. I know you'd love that.
I talked to a previous AOC president one time and said, you know, Straight Skinny, how is it? And they said, it's great work, it's really important, but it's so much. And I'm traveling so much and I feel badly for all the stuff that I'm not doing. And I don't know how you could avoid that dynamic. So I think
Yeah.
we should just anticipate it.
I think the good news is we're in a short session, so that will help instead of a long session. Like I know when Derek did it from Klamath, he was spent that entire long session essentially in Salem.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll have the month of February where I will
Sure.
largely be in Salem. But that thankfully is short session.
Yeah.
Lucky us, instead of a long session. But yeah, but I do think we want to think about that. And I think also thinking about with our liaisonships, who has what coming up on the liaisonship, right? Like we know that we're going to be replacing Marlene. That said, it's a relatively complicated organization. I was
Yeah.
sitting on health council today thinking that as I was going through it, thinking I probably should stay with that, even though it's going to be complicated,
Mhm.
just because of the body of knowledge.
Put that in your list, right? She's keeping it.
But there are, yeah, definitely other things and, and then there are departments like Sarah's, and Sarah's sitting here. I think we all meet with Sarah
I think we do too.
already because what she does has so many facets
Mhm.
and the public has so many touch points on that we already all meet with Sarah.
Mhm.
So I think in terms of something like her department shifting liaisonships isn't such a hard thing for that to be a little bit fluid because we all meet with her. We all have the relationship already. And it's, we're already engaged. And I would encourage us to think with other departments that are complicated or that are multifaceted to not be afraid to do that. When I got here, I was terrified to meet with somebody else's liaison because I didn't want to step on their toes because I thought that's how it worked,
Mhm.
right? And I think realizing for all of us that because it's not your liaison doesn't mean you can't meet with that person regularly
Right.
if you feel like you really want to know more about their department. Because I do think that's been kind of this awkward moment of, well, it's not my liaison. Are we duplicating efforts, right? But again, there are so many departments that are so multifaceted that the areas that each of us find of
Well,
greatest
Christie's a good
interest may be
example.
different.
Like even Christie, the clerk's office is a
Yeah.
good example.
Yeah.
And there's things that you talk to her very closely about that
Mhm.
I have no idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other thoughts or comments? What did I read on this that I was like,
So we can bring this back, we have a couple more board briefings to the end of the year. And I think back in 24 liaisons, we did it in the first week in January, so
Yeah.
there is time to
yeah,
have
there's
those
the one thing that
conversations.
we need to do is for CFTLC and FTLAC, and that is if we're going to select Paul as the voting member. Again, the one thing that doing this officially does, we're required to give them an official document as to who our voting member is.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's and we could still do it the first week of January. but-
Sure.
Do we do that via board letter? Have we done that in the
No,
past?
I've just always sent them
Okay.
this. Once this was approved,
Uh,
I've just sent them this after that
Okay.
we've approved.
And I am interested in keeping that if you don't want. So,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because again, it's an investment. You've learned a ton about that.
yeah. And I enjoy,
Yeah.
learning more about it.
Yeah.
Because it's economic
Mhm.
development, that's another one.
It is economic development. So for sitting here today, do we want to talk a little bit, if there is any particular one that you're like, I don't really care, or I don't really want it anymore, or I would like to have, do we want to just kind of have that conversation today, not to make decisions, but so everybody can go back and think and chew over the next week and then bring this back and kind of say, oh, well, I would be okay with that, or no, I wouldn't, because normally we kind of just have our asks on the table. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody is ready for any of them, but.
Well, I'm repeating myself now to say that I'm not eager to let go of any of mine, but if Paul wants a sheriff's office, that's fine, and I'd be interested to know if he has something he'd like me to take on.
I would be interested in the sheriff's office only because we are working on some of the ordinance stuff. Like it feels like a natural, like the Sand Lake ordinance for the, yeah. So I think I would. I'm trying to pull up I don't have that sheet. I thought I.
Yeah, well, and the other thing we did a few years ago that was really helpful for me was, and if everyone's okay, I would love to have this updated, where we put in to our little spreadsheet, here were the departments that we each had, here were the, like, appointed boards that we sat on, and then here were the community projects that we're a part of, just so that we can all kind of take a look and say, what is our balance across those things in how we're all representing in the community? Would that be helpful for anybody else, or at least willing to do it with me for next week?
I do know a couple. I mean, I wouldn't break my heart to give up Colpack.
It seems like I had some kind of a conflict, so send me the schedule for that.
Well,
Because,
that might be it.
yeah, there was a time
It's a
when,
tough one for me to make meetings. They put a lot of these on things.
They're always on the third Thursday or something
Yeah.
strange,
It
every
was-
other month.
Yeah, it was normal for speaking of bundling, for Colpack now and EDC to
That's
be,
probably why I
to
got-
be bundled, but,
No, that's
Northwest Act, yeah.
right. And, yes, but then I can't remember what the conflict was, so that I ended up with EDC. I have EDC, I'm the chair, that doesn't mean I have to be forever, but I'm in EDC, but not the others. So we can look at that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Send me the schedule, so I can look and see if I still have
I'm
it.
honestly
There
looking
was some
at,
reason I couldn't go.
like, I'm looking at ones that in the 11 months I've been here, either I haven't really connected with. Most of them are going to be boards. Like, I was
Mhm.
surprised at how many boards.
A lot,
Right.
yeah.
And it's hard for me to really, like, I remember asking you, like, what do they do? Like, I remember going to some of these board meetings and I'm listening and I'm probably like, what do we do?
Yes.
Colpack was one of those ones. I'm like, what do we do?
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
that we meet. That's what we do, Paul. We meet and we talk. And it's like five meetings. Only I feel like we're actually doing work.
Right, I agree.
So there was like some of those that I feel like with the FTLAC, I feel like I participated. I'm invested in that. I want to learn more about it. But there's other ones, like I said, I think most of them are going to not necessarily be the department liaison, but it's the peripheral liaison. Like, I'm not going to make you take back Adventist Health. I can handle that one.
Aren't we all? We're all on
We're
it.
all on that.
We're all
I'm
on
not that one. It was the wellness one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sound like any wellness.
what I appreciate about that is that, you were like, I'm not really going to the meeting. I've been able to, whether it's because of our scheduling or our personal lives, and sometimes, and so I'm trying to identify those that I feel like I'm not giving my all to these. And maybe one of you two could. Maybe some of these might be easier for you with your busy schedule because they're just Zoom meetings sometimes,
Yeah.
I don't know.
What about you, Erin?
So we're listed as co-liaisons for TC4, but I don't need to be on TC4. I never go to
Okay.
TC4. I think that was because maybe of the, I don't know, when we were redoing the hazard mitigation plan or something. I don't know how we ended up with that one, but I certainly don't need to be that one.
Okay.
I would keep ONC timber just because it goes with the timber stuff. I'm on the Executive Risk Management Committee. I don't know if anybody wants that one. I'm happy to give that up, or I'm happy to stay with it.
And I don't know if we need, with our restructuring, if we need a commissioner on it.
I was just going to think
don't
that too. I was just thinking that too.
Yeah.
Because that'll be you.
And we've talked about kind of changing that anyway, because there hasn't been a whole lot happening. But with new council coming on, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
So I think we could pull that one off.
That would be fine. Yeah, because we just sit there.
And then
we
you
just-
advise us, is that?
Yeah, because we just go over like, what are all the open insurance claims?
Yeah.
So, which is helpful, and I think a summary from it would probably be helpful to commissioners at some level to know, hey, maybe it's just an annual summary, something where we play back, here's how we did this year, right? To help us identify areas that maybe we need more focus. But yeah, I could give up that one. The Housing Commission, it's one of those that's probably time for me to step away from it. I was there when it started. I've been there through the whole thing. I haven't talked to Sarah about that, but it feels a little bit like it could maybe benefit from fresh energy that's not mine. I don't know.
I've been going
Sarah's
to
back there.
meetings, I've been going to the housing commission meetings, so I mean, I would, if you want to dump that.
So it's not so much I want to dump it, but I just,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
it's one of
You
those,
can transition
sometimes,
that to me.
yeah, because
That might
sometimes
be
you feel
awesome.
like maybe I've given what I have to give. And I don't know if you ever feel that way when you do some of the stuff, but you feel like I had a lot to give in the beginning. And I'm not sure that I still do. It might be one of those spaces, and Paul, you might be the right guy because it's time to think of it from a different lens, right?
I'm definitely interested. I wouldn't be upset if we transition that one.
Okay.
Bravo.
And
I learned.
I support you going to that meeting because the work is super important, but do we actually need a commissioner liaison to that, or is it like a champion role, or what is the
For
role?
the Housing Commission? I mean, Sarah, what are your thoughts? I mean, I feel like I think it is important. In part, my role has been,
Come on down.
yeah, my role has in part
Join
been,
us.
at some section is to hold the guardrails as to what they can do and what they can't just run off and do, because they're kind of a very skilled, very smart group of people that sometimes forget they actually are an appointed committee of the county, and so then they want to run off and do things that they just can't take on individually, personally, as a group. So Sarah then looks at me, and it's my job to say, as advisory to the commissioners, why don't you put something together and you can present it to us, and we'll tell you if that's a direction you can go.
Yeah.
Things like they want to just pick up the phone and talk to the county attorney because they're on a county commission. Shouldn't that just be fully available to them? So
Gotcha.
sometimes Sarah leans on me to make sure that they understand that they, are as an advisory to us, but not
Gotcha.
running amok. But other than that, I think it is, I mean, I think for them, they like having a commissioner there.
Can I tag on to that a little bit? And maybe I'm looking at the list on the website that might not be. Is anybody a liaison to the CACs?
Sarah.
I am, as the
Would you
community
like to have a
development
commissioner
director.
maybe be a CAC part of that process? Because what she
Careful
just,
what you ask for.
Right.
being on all the-
Part of
Well,
that is
the reason I
if
say
they're
that is-
doing if they're
It's the
doing
land use piece of
the
it,
land
why
use
it's
oh,
me.
that's right, we can't.
be-
All right, never mind.
But they love seeing you. So when we don't have those land use issues, like Commissioner
Sure.
joined me, and it was a legislative proceeding, so she could be there, and I think it was very insightful for her.
To me, it was more along the lines, I was just tagging on to her,
Yeah.
it was just a fact of advisory rather than.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Agreed.
But
And-
I get that, you're right, I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
I would say that I believe in the board order for establishing the Housing Commission, there is a commissioner liaison position.
Okay.
Yep, so, and to your point, I think we, meaning Parker and I, do need someone because right now the example is the CPACE program. Commissioner Scar and I recently had a conversation. There's another program out there with money and, there's a lot of strings attached. We're just launching Merle. We've got a whole ordinance to write. We're working on the CERTA grant. We've got the Brownfield program. And, it was really helpful to have that conversation with her the other day of, is it the right time? Because with staffing resources, we are going so fast, so hard. Should we finish what we've already started implementing before we take on new things? We've got this other phase of 406, and having a commissioner also to have that conversation with, to go back and say, this is a great opportunity, but we don't have to pursue this one right now. We want to be thoughtful about the things we've already started before we take on more. And I think that I know I need that.
Yeah, so I think Sarah leans into me when it's, she needs that to say it's county, it's not just her saying it, right?
Makes
There's
sense.
county
Yeah.
resources. Yeah. I do have a regular meeting with Parker that I would probably keep. It's a 30-minute meeting that we do with Corin from CARE for the Houseless Action Network. And it's the crossover between houselessness and housing. So I would probably keep that with Parker, right? Because that's still a crossover we need because the Houseless Action Network needs that additional information, et cetera.
Well, you would also have a cross connect between the health department and anything that she's going with. So there is always.
Right, so those
like
cross
Mike was
connects
saying,
will exist.
it
Exactly.
exists in almost all these departments.
Exactly.
And there's nothing, that's great.
I don't know, Paul, if you have interest in Salmonberry Trail and Oregon Coast Trail's not on here, but I am still part of that convening group. I'm happy to keep doing those. I'm fairly deeply embedded in them, but I do, again, look at it and sometimes just want to make sure that I'm giving it the best. And I've looked at what you've come in with, just with that sort of throw the doors open, what's possible, and wonder if those wouldn't benefit from your work. And so chew on it if you want to.
I will. I mean, I have an interest in that like, because it's recreationally related for sure. And also I do have, some, I have a lot of conversations about that trail and the railroad and you know, interaction with both, the Caroline
Caroline, yeah.
and then, you know, with board members from the port too. So I think I do. And maybe it's that I'll just maybe step in when you need to next year. If you're too busy, that you don't maybe need to disconnect completely, but
Right.
you can let them know, hey, Paul's gonna be showing up.
I'm not available.
So I am interested.
Okay, so
I
let's,
feel like it
let's
ties
figure
in.
out if that's a co-thing we do for the next
Sure.
year and then look at whether or not that's something I ultimately relinquish. Hopefully the light wave will only, I mean, at this point,
Yeah,
I
we-
would love to switch chairs and let you be the primary next year and for me to be the alternate, because I think that would, again, takes it off my plate of things.
I feel like I'm starting to get a handle on that one, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, so yeah, I would
Understanding the
like to.
situation, because there's only two on them.
It's a very weird board.
At first, I make a motion, I second the motion, done.
I know, right? Call the vote. Oh, wait, no, motion is second. No vote needed.
Elaine?
Thank
Oh,
you,
yeah, we've all got
Sarah.
our packets. Thank you, Sarah. So those are the ones that strike me, but I'm happy that anybody that has one on here that goes, well, do you want to give this up? Let's talk it out, because it's been 5 years. Like I said, there's many of them I've probably given what I have to give in fresh eyes and, you know, new ideas.
I will say one thing, I honestly didn't realize that I was an alternate on the Tillamook County Economic Development Council, so I would like to get more involved in that if I could, but, and I don't know, as an alternate, if that's just something I just start doing. I really didn't even realize that.
Doug came to the meetings with me consistently because he had a history with EDC and he was doing the Northwest Act stuff. And he had a long history with EDC that well predated mine, but I was the chair.
Okay.
And I might have given it up. I might have said, yeah, Doug, you take EDC this year, but I'm the chair. So he came with me and we just made sure that the meetings were noticed. So we're both there. We got one like weird, that's obviously my judgment, weird complaint. Somebody complained to the county clerk, the two commissioners are at the EDC meeting, and we took care of it, you know, but people watch that kind of stuff. So we just have to be careful to note things, and we do. So.
Yeah, and I think noticing is, like I said, my big next year, 2026. I'm the chair.
Yeah.
For the light wave?
Yeah, that's the biggest one I want to give
That
you
was
is
for
this.
EDC.
Oh, okay.
EDC. Yeah, no, I'd like to do that. I didn't know if they were publicly noticed, but if we can do that and I can start,
Sure.
that'd be
Does
awesome.
that mean you want to keep Northwest Act?
I'll keep it Northwest. Well, that's the weird thing. What?
Don't they
Northwest
go
Act-
together, Colpack and Northwest
Well,
Act?
not anymore.
Oh,
They're
okay.
not
now-
on the same day
No, because,
anymore?
well, ODOT stopped the funding.
Oh,
that's
right.
So they
I
are on the
just heard
same
that
day,
from
but
somebody else.
and they always been an hour apart, but now ODOT is facilitating the,
So there's no lunch in
I
between?
do want to hold on to that.
Is there lunch in
Maybe
between?
it's silly, I'll just want to go back. Yes, it's still.
Still, same location, still have lunch, just.
Yeah, so you know what, it doesn't make sense to separate, I'd rather keep the Northwest Act because I'm dealing with the highway stuff.
Right.
So, okay, forget the.
Okay,
I'll
all right.
stick with that.
Okay.
Did you get that, Isabel? Full back.
He's keeping it.
And Northwest Act, I'll keep those are sure. I guess we could tell her, I mean, do we want to do that today or not, to see?
If we know, we can tell her everything we
Is
know.
that helpful to?
Yeah, I would, if you
Absolutely.
know today, I would give them to her and then she can update the spreadsheet that you want to see again
I
and
would
that can
love
be
to
our
You wanna
next
go-
meeting.
You guys want to go through your list and say what you definitely want to keep, and then maybe, or how you going to do that?
I went through what I was willing to throw off. I have no I mean, if,
Yeah, me
I'm
either.
open to anything you want to ask and then I might say, other than FTLAC, CFTLC, I need to finish that
Let me see
stupid
what
forest
you have.
management plan
I feel like
first.
we're playing, like, go fish.
Right, right.
We are.
Well, Isabel, I am willing to give the sheriff's office to Paul. And
I have that.
Let me
And
give you something.
And then EDC?
no, because I'm the
Potentially.
chair.
I'm an alternate.
But he's going to be the
I'll
alternate.
just start,
Them as
Well, you
co
already-
or whatever.
I guess he already is the
I
alternate.
already am the alternate, I just didn't know that. I'm doing,
And is there a term for that chair, or you just chair it until?
Good question. Don't know.
So
It's
many of
the-
these, I'm chair, and you're chair until you say I refuse to be chair anymore.
Right, well, the position itself is in the bylaws, like that, so permanently, there's a commissioner in that role, but I shouldn't permanently have to be chair.
So you could, if you wanted to
I
step
would
away
be
from
the
it, you
chair.
could give Paul that, and
Come
he
on
could
now,
be
I'm
the
gonna be
chair.
that chair.
I'm just saying,
Let's talk about that.
you could just have chair tattooed on your forehead for the year, and we'll just put you
I
chair
don't know what I'm
everywhere
gonna be
you
doing.
go.
I still don't understand, but I don't have anything else that I really,
Okay.
so if you find something on my list that you like,
All
just let me know.
Okay.
Even department wise, it's something, I mean,
Okay.
you know, I've talked to my liaisons, like,
Mhm.
like you guys, I'm fine with what we have.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, I'll look mine over more carefully about potential changes,
Is
but
what the Northwest Oregon works, I do enjoy that, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I'm the right, I feel like I'm not sure.
It's a strange.
It's kind of that
Yes.
thing where I really like Heather, I get, like,
Mhm.
I like the discussions.
yeah.
I don't feel like I'm utilizing it as much as I should, you know, like they have,
Mhm.
like CDLs, when they talk to Chris and we need CDLs and they have money for training. And it doesn't seem, I don't seem to be really, I'm not very effective in it, I
Right.
guess. And so if you look at that one, but I also don't mind it either, it's just, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
It's a
You
weird.
know what I mean?
I feel like there's very little that links to Tillamook County in
Right.
that board.
I agree.
That, and no matter, because I mean, I sat on it and I was like, I'm gonna make this work.
That's
And
what
I
I
met with
thought.
Stephanie and we're like, how do we get more of the resources to Tillamook County? How do we, match what we need with what they can get? And it just never worked that way. It's a big
Mhm.
federal program. Is at the end of the day, it's a big federal program that feels like it just is gonna do what it's gonna do. You can't really
Yeah.
plug into it nor shift it
I
effectively.
feel the same
Well-
way with the Northwest Oregon Economic Alliance. Which one's that?
No, yeah, that's just that's part of Northwest Act, or not, I'm sorry, it's part of,
Yeah.
Colpac. It's an adjacent
Okay, I see that.
organization that has the grant, they're the
Okay.
funder,
Okay.
the grants,
Okay.
for businesses.
I haven't done anything, like, I've never got an email from meeting or anything.
Well, it's
And
part
chat
of
to
it's
Colpac?
part of your Colpac meeting. So first you do your Colpac business, and then you do your NOEA business, and your NOEA business is where they look at it and say, here are the grants that we have out, here's what's being repaid on those grants.
Okay.
Do you remember that part of the
Yeah.
meeting? Yeah, that's NOEA, it's just they're folded together.
Okay.
Yeah, now is interesting, and I agree. And I have been in some of their strategic planning workshops where I've said, let's talk about more investment in workforce training in Tillamook County. And it doesn't happen. Like, they've already invested in workforce training in other places, heavily in Astoria, and all of that's good work. But it never felt like,
That's what
yeah, it never felt like we were moving the dial to bring something to Tillamook County. So then, but we're required, the county is required to have a representative appointed to the board because for oversight of federal money. And therefore, then I felt like, well, my whole role here really is about oversight of federal money. So,
Yeah,
That's how I feel. I did take a couple people crabbing in that one though.
nice.
We had to do a PED.
Nice.
yeah.
But the same thing, like I was trying to direct, well, can we put some money, is there any money available for the CTE program?
Mm-hmm.
And the McQuaig property and
Mhm.
like all these
Yeah,
other things
yeah.
that were exciting, the blue economy, can we get some
Yes.
money? Oh, yeah. And then,
It never quite goes there.
It never-
And there's the now board, and then there's the board that's over the now
Yes.
board. So, or the actual workforce board, which you are not a member of, but
Right.
you attend. And then there's that governance, it's the 5 county
us.
commissioners, that's the governance. I ended up the
Yeah.
chair of that. That was really hard to get out of because everybody kept changing except me.
Mhm.
And so then it was like, I'm the only one that knows what's happening here and I have to do, okay.
Yeah.
I just did that, I had a vote on something on that board.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the weird part, is there's that 5-member governing board and then there's the actual working board.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
See, people don't realize this.
Oh,
in
yeah.
public. They don't
It's-
realize,
it takes
that
years
these
to
aren't
learn
things
this
we
stuff.
all.
No, and well, it's like senior and
Some of
disability
these things-
services.
yeah.
We have an appointed seat on that board, so I still sit on that board. I'm fine doing it. I've known the organization for a long time. Happy to give it up if anybody would like it.
I don't know how
Um,
commissioners in counties that are
You just do it.
part-time
I know.
that have to do.
Well, they
and
don't show up.
They just don't show up.
So like the Northwest Senior Disability Service has been Courtney Bangs forever, and she never is able to be
Sure,
there. And so
right.
I don't think it's her fault. It's just she's not able to be there. So, yeah, full-time commissioners like us keep those things moving.
Yeah. Yeah. And it keeps us involved because I've talked to lots of county commissioners who say, I don't know what's going on.
I will say this, the fact, we talked about last year, we might want to just take it off the list, and
Yeah.
it's by a board order, we have to be on.
I reached out to them again. I didn't
That's
have
the
any luck.
Fisherman's Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
The other, that's kind of gone the wayside, in the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Oregon Steering Committee, I'm not, that one was, and that kind of went, there's nothing going on there because when, that was.
Is that about the
the
wind
windmills in the
energy?
ocean.
Mhm.
I went to a couple of meetings of that, and then
So
and
keep
the
that.
OCDMA is becoming active, and so
Okay.
I'm enjoying that one. That's good. But,
Oh, good.
but the fact when and Raymond Rose on OCDMA, so he would be probably the one on fact too. But I don't think anything's happening. I haven't never got anything about fact. The fishing.
But we've talked off and on about just disbanding that. Maybe it's time to.
Yeah,
send
and and so I did reach out, but I haven't heard back. I think 3 times.
Okay, then.
I think
No,
I would
but-
send an email saying we're considering disbanding and just move that along.
Mhm.
Okay.
So one thing I can tell you, Isabel, is that the Emergency Management Advisory Committee is going to disband. And so we should go through the process to do that, and whatever that process is, because we didn't appoint people to it.
Right.
So yeah, and what happened there is that the group was big enough that it was just cumbersome. It was cumbersome to get work done, and so we were meeting, and what we really need there is a steering committee. So we're going to disband the big advisory committee and stand up a little steering committee that's just like your executive board, just like a little group of trusted advisors. And so that's in process.
So we would have 2 board orders disbanding the Emergency Management Committee, in fact,
Okay.
to take those off the books,
Sounds
and then
good.
they would come off of your list.
Okay.
And you would still be on it, but I don't know. We could have the steering committee whenever that's appropriate, or
Okay.
it's not on there because it's not an appointed board. It's just one of the things that you're working on that's
True.
on the other
True.
project list.
Yeah.
And Isabel, one of the other things that we need to clean up is figuring out how to make our Tillamook be the Tillamook County Mental Health Advisory Committee, because we're required to have that advisory
Right.
committee in statute, but it's all the people that already sit on our Tillamook, and so that's how we've told them we're doing it. We just need to figure out how we do that, because it's tricky to figure out, do we have to appoint individual people and how? So you and I work together on that the
Right.
coming year?
Yeah.
It's not like it has to happen tomorrow, but just to put on the list of things to figure out. Because they told me when I talked to them at the state that you can designate another committee that already exists.
Yeah, because they had called.
But then,
Yeah.
I was like, can you tell me how that looks? Like, is it different? What's the process? And I don't think they know
It
either.
sounds like we would have a board order where you designate our Tillamook
As the Mental Health
Yeah.
Advisory Committee.
Yep.
Okay, so if we can get that done in the new year, that would be great too. And then on CFTLC and FTLAC, I am now vice chair instead of chair.
One thing, other thing, just go back what we were talking about. One of the things, just so you know, I'd like to go to a few meetings of the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and we get invited all the time, and are you able to attend those regularly?
Not regularly, so would you like to be the liaison?
It could be, or I feel like it's taking on more and more, so I don't want.
Well,
I
why
want to
not,
see the list.
let's say, put it on Paul's
Which one
list,
are
and then
we-
we'll look at the balance. How
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, and we can
That's what I was just saying, and I think we do a pretty good job of that. We've been, like, if somebody can go to an event and they can't go to an event, I think things should be true for some of these meetings. If you're kind of both interested, or you were the formal liaison, and you're like, hey, I'm not making these meetings, but just as long as we're representing the board.
That the soil and water?
Mhm.
So are you keeping it, or?
She said to put it on my list, and then we'll look at the balance.
Sure.
Yeah, because I went to their dinner thing. That was nice. We should,
Yeah,
we should all go to their dinner. They have good food, nice people.
right. Oh, totally, yeah,
Oh, yeah, you did that.
yeah. Ray, Rudy,
I didn't do
yeah.
that one?
I went to that one.
Mm.
It was
I went
the
last.
same night as, something else.
Yes.
Oh, it was the same night as the other one I went to. Can't remember now.
I
Another
remember
event.
You went to the, that's right.
There was another
Something
event.
else was going on, I couldn't
Because I
remember.
did something that morning that Suzanne and I were both at, and then she and I were both at the Soil and Water Conservation District, and then I think it was maybe the Y or something.
Hmm.
Maybe, I think it was the Y auction that night.
Under my list, I have,
ask you.
they're mostly my central services department. I don't know, I don't think they need to be on there because it's not really a liaison role.
True.
So I think we can take those off.
And would you suggest at this point we put maybe the treasurer with you, or does Deborah have liaisons? Not making a whole lot of sense for it to be me at this point with the changes that have occurred.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I think
Feels like
actually
that would probably
Deborah,
be a Deborah liaison.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Treasurer's office to,
So take that off of me and we'll add
Yeah.
it to.
Add, I've only ever been the one under staff liaison, but add Deborah there and put treasurer's office under her, and I'll talk to her and Sean about that.
Because I'm happy to keep it, but it just feels like the communication is really gonna happen with Deborah.
Yeah.
Oh, the soil and water one is when I get yelled at. I get yelled at when I go to that one.
Did you just remember that?
Yeah.
Because I was surprised when you offered.
It's on your list now.
Dang it! I've done it, but I'm gonna think hard about that one.
who's yelling at you?
I'm not gonna say it publicly, but she knows.
I know, I totally know.
Super nice to me. Let's just say this individual's a very nice man and is super nice to me and
Other
somebody
things.
on Farm Bureau and not so nice to me. But still a valuable member of our community.
That's right.
I did forget.
I was thinking,
And I'm
wow.
like, it's you were there. I'm like, I said, this is Mary Faith's job, not mine. I don't know the answer to these. That's the whole Holy Creek thing. No, I don't want that. We're gonna talk about this one.
It's hilarious.
You're like, "Ooh." You know what that's like when you play Monopoly and you get you get Broadway and you're secretly getting them all and no one's paying attention.
That's awesome.
Okay, have we taken this as far as it should go today?
Always.
I think it's been a good conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to just take the time to like chew on it, as opposed to feeling like we have to just do it, make it happen. So I appreciate that. Okay,
There is mud, Isabel.
there's mud I know.
You got
And
it.
I would suggest if you have, like, I'll bring you my specific changes that, like, co-chair things that I threw out there that,
Okay,
The legal stuff that we need for, well, we can't do that to you, the board order.
right, that'll be the board order. The other thing I do want to mention today, though, is so I'm going to the ONC Timber meeting in December, and we will be voting for officers at ONC, and we get 3 votes as Tillamook County for whatever reason, but I have to have your proxies. So are you okay with me voting on your behalf for chair and treasurer and secretary at the ONC?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have to do a formal letter for that.
I don't, do we? If we do, could you
Yep.
find that? That would be great. I don't think I took a formal letter last year. I think I just said I vote Tillamook County's 3 votes.
Get us some money out of that, would you?
Let me tell you, there's a lot of people spending a lot of money on travel to try to make that so.
Yeah.
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 I mean, this week.
There
I
was an
know.
interesting thing at AOC talking about the tilt and the stuff like that, and just how
Yeah.
if we just cut this bare minimum,
Mhm.
it would make up so much. Remember that?
Truly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, if we could get
It
it
seems
back.
like there's some solutions out there that are really simple, but we don't do them.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, if we could just
Yeah.
get the regulations to go our direction and
Oh.
let us do it.
I have something totally off the subject.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now we're to updates.
Okay, so as chair, AOC chair, I would love it if you and the committee could consider changing the order of the business meeting, because it was like putting the action items first, front loading the action items, because you mentioned that you wished we would stay in order to take those votes, and that was fine, and it's important, and it's, it's part of why we're there. And I wanted to be at 3:30 when staff comes. I wanted to be there to help them. I had told Debbie I thought I could, so I felt like a jerk for not doing it. But also there were a lot of commissioners in there helping their staff. So I'd like to be in that group of commissioners who help staff. So if we could just have voted by 3:30, I think you would have a lot more voters because they were in there helping
Yeah,
their
I
staff.
watched Curry County, they left.
Hood River left, yeah.
Well, and we
yeah.
had the conversation, and we'll continue to have the conversation about moving that business meeting to the morning.
Oh, good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yes, because other
So-
people have left entirely. They're not
Entirely,
sticking around.
entirely, they're not
Yeah.
staying. So looking at, this, one of my recommendations, looking at Friday morning and then having Friday afternoon be a shared state legislator, county commissioner, something.
That's a great idea.
And then the state legislators are invited to Wander, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that came
Great
up.
idea.
I don't know if we'll do it or not, but that came up. I was talking with Brock Smith, Senator Brock Smith, and Julie Fahey,
Mm-hmm.
because they were the two legislators that were there, and they're like, "We got to get more legislators here," and we're like, "Yes, we
I
do."
think that's really,
So
Yeah,
that was
so-
a thought.
yeah, Susanna Cyrus should show up.
Right, and if we could find something in that afternoon slot
Mm-hmm.
that would interest legislators and commissioners alike,
Mhm.
and then lead into Wander, Oregon,
Yeah.
that just, more interaction.
Mhm.
Because the more interaction we can have with our state elected officials, the better.
Yeah.
For the people, for the one person listening,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wander, Oregon is, why don't you explain what that is? Because it's an interesting thing.
Well,
Debbie's the only person
Debbie's the only
online that
person
knows
Debbie, do you know
very
what Wander,
well.
oh, that's right, you set it up.
Yeah, so it'll only be
Very
if someone
faithful
goes
to your
back and
load.
watches our recording. That's
That's
know
right.
what Wander, Oregon
Never
is.
mind, you guys,
I
And
abandoned
if
you.
you're
you
watching this
remember.
recording and you want to know what Wander, Oregon is, call one of us.
yeah, there you go.
We'll tell you. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I hope that you bring up the idea of the thing that we voted on that got voted down again about the no nominations from the floor. I hope we just keep talking about that.
We were actually going to try to take a year off.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is it's become a referendum on Danielle's presidency instead of an actual look at policy. And if you look at the vote and you look at how people vote when we do that,
Mhm.
I believe that what you will see is that it is fueled by frustration that fueled by the frustration that somehow Danielle was a bad president because it happened that way. And so I would love to give it a break. Hopefully Danielle she's stepping off the executive committee
Mhm.
so that there'll be a little bit of time
Mhm.
and then take it up again in a couple years. Because
Okay.
just because I think, when you listen to the people who spoke about it,
Oh, for sure.
the people who were speaking in favor of it were not speaking in favor of the governance choice. They were speaking in favor of Danielle's presidency, which
Right.
is fine. I understand that's how they feel, and I wouldn't take away their feels.
They
But
were
I
also speaking
think
in
it's getting
favor
in
of
the
the
way.
fact that they were part of that. They were part of that, and
Yeah.
so they were defending themselves and Danielle, which I did understand. So that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think if we could step away from it, certainly for a year, let her, because she will be out of her past president role, she will not be as front and center. If we can wait a couple of years, some commissioners who were a part of that will have timed out, and we'll actually hopefully be able to pick it up freshly as a policy
That
choice,
makes sense.
not a referendum. So I appreciate that it would be nice to get it solved, because
Mhm.
it is a frustration that someone can
Mhm.
walk in that last moment, and
It was
you
so
know.
destructive.
it was, and
Yeah.
it frustrates me that people can't see that,
Mm-hmm.
but they
agree.
actually see it as a win instead of
Right.
as damaging. So
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
and it just
yeah.
drove division. It
Yeah,
drove the
100%.
urban-rural divide. It drove division. It was destructive.
Yeah, so I since we're all just sitting here, I don't think anybody's paying attention. Not that it would matter. This year there was a push to run a candidate as well, and there was a lot of conversation. And I really want to give Jeremy Gordon just a ton of credit. We were in the room, and Gabe said, "I know who it is." Finally, because we don't know where the movement was
Mhm.
coming from to understand if it was just, anti-Jeremy, or if there's something else going on, trying to keep from having that divisive activity
sure.
happen.
Yeah.
And found out one of the people who was, encouraging it and who they were encouraging. And Jeremy said, I think I need to go talk to a couple people.
Oh, good.
And so he immediately went and chatted with the person who was not necessarily the spearhead of it, but one of the integral people in it, and talked to that person, and then went and talked to the person that they were encouraging to run.
For recruiting. Yeah.
So I think, I was just really pleased with how that shook out, because it was like, hey, if you don't think I'm great for this, that's totally fine. Let's talk about why. Let me hear from you. And hey, if you really want to run for this, let's talk about it. Because Jeremy's like, if this person really wants it that bad, I can wait 2 years. I'm not that, it's not big enough deal for me to make a big
Yeah, that was good.
mess of it. So anyway, I thought I was really pleased with his actions. I thought that really helped.
Yeah.
And it took the energy kind of out of it, which was nice.
That is good.
So,
Yeah.
yes,
He seems like a good guy.
Jeremy's a great guy. Yeah, I think he's going to be a fabulous president for
And I
AOC.
was impressed with you and a bunch of people from your class. Like, this is a dynamic class.
I will
It
say
is a
this.
powerful class.
Yeah.
We joke that we're the best, but we really are. I am so proud of that class. I feel like it's my high school. Like I do. It's like
Sure.
I don't know if you guys had that same. You had to go online.
I was
so-
online.
Right.
But we're talking about the county college class, which is all newly elected commissioners. So it's 26, I think, of those 36 candidates. But we are a group, and like we will come to the Capitol, and like we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we will speak up. And what I will say this too, and not all of them are nonpartisan. Some of them are,
Yeah.
and they're from frontier counties, and they're from large counties. And what I realized in the whole year of county college, I never heard anybody talking politics on a national level.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Nice.
far right, far left.
Mhm.
It was like, we have this problem in our county. How are we going to solve it? And it's amazing. We would meet for dinner later, and I never felt that there was anything other than, and most of them, there was a few, but most of them were not politics, except for Gabe. Gabe Shepard is Benton County Commissioner. He was also Corvallis City, and he's fantastic.
City councilor.
He's like
Yeah,
our
he's
valedictorian as far as
Yeah.
explaining politics to all of us. But the rest of them, like ranchers, a saddle maker, a former sheriff. Like there was just a really big group of people, and nobody was a career politician.
Yeah.
So they were just like normal people trying to figure it out. So yeah, I'm really proud of that class.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome class, and I really believe that Lisa Collier will probably be the next in line for.
She's fantastic.
president
I mean,
as- yeah, I think she'll run next year. And we do a flip flop east west on.
Oh, okay.
There's no rule about it,
Sure.
but it's just tradition that you have someone from the west will lead someone from the east, and you flip and flop it back and forth. And so I expect that next year she'll probably run.
That's great.
Yeah, so your class is going to get right in line.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to happen with a bunch of people. And they just asked some good questions. And you know what? I have to up my hat game. I was going to put a post on this because we have Rob Frank,
Yes.
who is this handsome, 6'3",
Right.
always dresses. He's a cowboy. He's like a
Hat has
simple.
just the
and
jaunty angle.
I took a picture of it. I got that to contend
You had a
with.
great look. Yeah.
And then we got Mitch with the handlebar waxed
Oh, yeah.
mustache from Union County, and he's always wearing a hat like a cowboy, big brick. And then not Mitch, that's Jake. And then
Jake Seaver.
Mitch is wearing like what we would call a scally cap. It's like a paperboy hat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everybody's gonna happen.
Are you a hat guy?
I'm not, but I'm gonna have
could
to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you could be.
Anyways, just I could talk about them. They're fun. We have a good time.
Yeah, it's a good group, for sure. Anything else for the good of the order while we're here today? Anything else going on?
You
that
guys
we
have a
need
good
to talk
Thanksgiving,
about
huh?
You too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Do you have anything
everybody.
else, Rachel? That
While we're all together, no?
Are you
Isabel?
cooking the big Thanksgiving dinner, Rachel? Nice. Good for you. I hope it's joyful. You're welcome. Are you cooking a small Thanksgiving dinner?
I'm not cooking at all.
Oh, good for you.
Deb is, you can go to Deb's house.
I'm setting up a big turkey this year. No turkey.
Okay.
For you. Don said he had like 40 people coming.
Oh wow.
Like, wow, all right.
Yes, they come to Rockaway and get places, and yeah, that's a really cool reunion.
Yeah,
it's
big family
incredible.
gig,
Yeah.
big family gig, so. All right. Well, if there is nothing else for the good of the order, we will adjourn this board briefing at 3:50. All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes. Our
Thank you.
land use packets, can't wait.
Yippee doo dah.
Thank you. If you guys have not had time to read the Dan Connor public comments,
Oh, the epic, the gigantic.
It wasn't gigantic. It
yeah,
was really
yeah,
bad.
it's a packet, it's a packet. And also, it's worth listening to the planning commission, I mean,